What if I told you the wildest scandal in love and hip-hop? Atlanta history didn't come from Rasheeda, didn't come from Kirk's endless cheating drama, but from their own son. Yeah, family. Fasten your seatbelts, because this isn't your usual TV storyline. This is some real-life chaos that feels like it was ripped straight out of a Tyler Perry movie. Picture this. Headlines screaming that Rasheeda and Kirk Frost's son shot a well-known rapper, and yet he's still walking free. Sounds unreal, right? You'd expect him to be locked up with no chance of bail, but instead, the judge banged the gavel and closed the case like it was nothing. No trial, no endless court battle, just freedom. So how in the world did a young Frost avoid charges that would have landed almost anyone else straight in Fulton County Jail? Was Kirk pulling strings? Was Rasheeda spending all that pressed boutique money on top-dollar lawyers? Or was something much darker at play? That's the mystery we're digging into today. The scandal that has the internet going crazy, side eyes everywhere, and people typing in all caps, "How did he get away with this?" To understand, we need to rewind. On one side of this drama, you've got Kai Frost, the son of Rasheeda and Kirk, the hip-hop couple famous for turning messy cheating scandals and family meltdowns into primetime gold. On the other side, there's rapper Tood, a man with more mugshots than mixtapes, and a reputation so toxic he could have been cast as the villain of the whole franchise. And in the middle of it all, a shooting that left one man dead, one man free, and an entire city arguing about whether justice was served or if this was just another example of celebrity privilege. But let's not pretend Tood was some innocent bystander. His history reads like a crime documentary series. Domestic violence cases that magically disappeared once witnesses went quiet. Allegations of cruelty to children. Bar fights and late-night altercations where he was known to swing bottles or pull whatever weapon was nearby. If drama was a sport, this man would have been in the Hall of Fame. And that's exactly who Kai's sister, Kay Frost, was dating. Neighbors say Kay had been enduring Tood's violent outbursts for months. Screaming, matches, cops being called to the house, late-night arguments spilling into the driveway. Everyone around knew it was toxic. But like always, people stayed quiet until tragedy forced them to speak. The breaking point came one night when Kai showed up and found his sister once again in a heated fight with Tood. Voices raised, threats flying, hands allegedly thrown. Witnesses claim Tood had a weapon on him. Some say it was tucked into his waistband, others swear he flashed it around like he was in a gangster film. Either way, Kai reacted. One moment things were heated, the next a shot rang out. Tood was on the ground, and the Frost family's world changed forever. Here's where the story twists. In Atlanta, when a young black man has a gun and ends up dead, the system usually doesn't let him walk out the door. But in Kai's case, the district attorney looked at the evidence and ruled it self-defense. Just like that, case closed. No trial, no drawn-out fight in court, and the internet absolutely lost it. Tweets started flooding in. If Kai wasn't Rasheeda's son, he'd be locked up right now. Celebrity privilege strikes again. So we're just going to ignore that someone died? The outrage was instant, but before grabbing the pitchforks, people had to look at the receipts. Police records showed text messages where Kay admitted to friends, "He put his hands on me again. I can't take it." Neighbors testified about seeing Tood threaten her in public. Prosecutors pulled up his long list of past charges. The picture was becoming clear. This wasn't some random act of violence. It was a brother stepping in before things got even worse for his sister. That's why the DA didn't push the case. The evidence spoke for itself. Still, not everyone accepted that explanation. While the police were labeling the case self-defense, Tood's family was on social media crying foul. His mother went live on Facebook in tears, demanding Kai be locked up. His sisters posted stories claiming the Frosts used money and fame to dodge justice. Then, to top it all off, they launched a GoFundMe. It was pitched as a fundraiser for Tood's funeral and legal expenses, but half the money seemed to disappear into family members' personal accounts. Screenshots started circulating, showing donations refunded, shady comments deleted, and even one of Tood's own cousins calling out the family for turning his death into a payday. The drama was so messy, it made the case itself look like only half the story. The internet split into two camps. On one side, people defended Kai, saying he did what any protective brother would have done. On the other, there were fans insisting the Frosts had manipulated the system. And right in the middle were Rasheeda and Kirk, still posting Instagram selfies like nothing had happened, like they weren't at the center of the biggest family scandal since Kirk's infamous cheating saga played out on national TV. Rasheeda's silence made it all even more suspicious. This is the same woman who claps back at fans over questions about her skincare line, but suddenly she has nothing to say about her son being tied to a deadly shooting. Either she's quietly working with lawyers behind the scenes, or she's waiting to release one of those long notes app statements asking for privacy while secretly setting up the next season's storyline. But here's the detail that keeps this scandal alive. Witnesses say the police report was edited. Yes, you heard that right. Rumors claim the original report had details that later disappeared, making people wonder if something was cleaned up to protect Kai. And that's why, months later, the scandal still refuses to die down. Word on the street is that the very first police report didn't even spell out self-defense. It was vague, something along the lines of, altercation occurred, one party deceased, that was it. But then, just a few days later, after lawyers started showing up, the wording magically changed. Suddenly it looked like a textbook stand your ground case. Was that just a coincidence? Or was someone carefully editing the record to protect Kai? That's the big question. Either way, the result was the same. Kai walked free and the Frost family slipped back into their lives like nothing happened. But make no mistake, this case blew the lid off a whole set of questions. How much power do reality TV stars actually hold in Atlanta? Did the Frost name make investigators think twice? Or was this one of those rare cases where justice actually worked the way it was supposed to? Nobody has a clear answer. And that uncertainty is exactly why the conversation refuses to die down. Because trust me, part 2 of this story goes way deeper. If you thought the shooting was the shocking part, wait until you hear about the so-called leaked files that made their way online, hinting that the rabbit hole behind this scandal goes much further than anyone imagined. For months, fans of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta were glued to every single update. It felt like Kai's future was hanging by a thread. Prosecutors were coming hard, the media was spinning the story to make him look guilty before a trial could even begin, and social media was adding fuel to the fire with endless rumors. By the time the verdict came, many people were convinced his life was essentially over. And then, bam, the judge cleared him of all charges. In a single moment, the narrative flipped upside down. Let's slow it down and look at how it all unraveled. This case didn't just appear out of nowhere. For months before the verdict, tabloids had been eating the story alive. Headlines painted Kai as a young man spiraling out of control, running with the wrong crowd and caught in drama way too big for him. Some stories even hinted that this scandal could ruin not just his future, but the legacy his parents had built in hip-hop and entertainment. The Frost brand, fashion, music, reality TV was suddenly in jeopardy. But when you stepped inside the courtroom, things looked totally different. Prosecutors made it sound like they had a solid case. They bragged about evidence that supposedly tied Kai directly to the shooting. But when it came time to actually lay it all out, the foundation crumbled. Witnesses contradicted each other. Timelines didn't match. Key details that once sounded damning collapsed under cross-examination. It became clearer and clearer. Kai wasn't some mastermind pulling strings. He was a kid caught in chaos, standing in the wrong place at the worst possible time. For Rasheeda, watching all of this unfold was brutal. Fans know her as the boss chick, the woman who balances music, fashion, and business ventures with ease. But in that courtroom, she wasn't the brand builder or the reality star. She was just a mother, fighting for her son's life. Reports say she attended every single hearing, refusing to miss even the smallest detail. Her face showed it all. Determination to protect her child, mixed with fear that everything could fall apart. Kirk, who has spent years being dragged for his behavior on Love and Hip Hop, stepped into a role many didn't expect. Forget the cheating scandals and the drama. This time he was a father standing up for his son. Insiders claimed he poured resources into building the defense team, meeting with lawyers, strategizing, and doing everything he could to make sure Kai had the best chance of clearing his name. For all of Kirk's past mistakes, this was a moment that revealed his loyalty as a dad. Meanwhile, public opinion was like gasoline on the fire. Social media was ruthless. Memes circulated, tweets dragged Kai's name through the mud, and Instagram posts mocked the Frosts for trying to buy their way out. The pressure was so intense that it could have broken anyone. But instead of folding, the Frost family closed ranks. They stayed united, heads down, focused only on fighting for the truth inside the courtroom. And when the judge finally announced the verdict, cleared of all charges, the reaction was explosive. People in the courtroom say Rasheeda broke down in tears, releasing weeks of bottled-up emotions. Kirk hugged Kai so tightly that it looked like he wasn't planning to let go. For the Frost family, this wasn't just about avoiding jail time. It was about freedom, vindication, and the chance to rebuild without the cloud of guilt hanging over their heads. Still, questions linger. Insiders whispered that the prosecution may have rushed into the case too quickly. Some believe they tried to make an example out of Kai because of his parents' fame, hoping to send a message that even celebrity kids aren't untouchable. If that's true, it backfired spectacularly. The case collapsed, leaving people wondering whether the whole ordeal was more about chasing clout and headlines than about seeking justice. And of course, fans are already speculating about how this will play out on screen. The Frosts have never been shy about letting their real-life drama play out on Love and Hip Hop. This scandal could easily become one of the most intense storylines in the show's history. Imagine the tension, the family arguments, the tears, the redemption arc. It's the kind of television that keeps viewers coming back week after week. People love a comeback story, and whether the Frosts want it or not, this saga has all the makings of one. But while the cameras might love it, The road ahead won't be easy for Kai. Being cleared doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't wipe away the trauma of being accused, dragged through the headlines, and judged by millions of strangers online. The stigma doesn't vanish overnight. Sources close to the family say Kai sees this as a wake-up call. He's determined to use the experience as motivation, choosing better circles, focusing on positive opportunities, and staying close to his family to avoid the traps that destroy so many celebrity kids. For Rasheeda, the trial was a reminder of what truly matters. She's built her empire brick by brick, but none of that meant anything compared to her son's freedom. Fans have been praising her strength, calling her a real one for the grace she showed in the middle of the storm. She may go back to music and fashion, but you can bet she'll never forget how close she came to losing everything. And then there's Kirk. He spent years trying to rebuild his image after scandal after scandal. But this case brought out a different side. A father who put everything on the line for his child. For once, the story wasn't about infidelity or betrayal. It was about loyalty. About a man willing to stand by his son no matter what the world threw at him. Whether you love or hate Kirk, this trial gave him a rare chance to show a side of himself most fans had never seen. Even though the Frosts walked away from this battle with a victory, the story feels far from over. Scars remain, and fans are, waiting to see how the family bounces back both on and off screen. Will this ordeal unite them even more tightly? Or will the constant pressure of fame, cameras, and public scrutiny reopen old wounds? One thing's certain. The Frost family proved they can endure a storm. Their son walked out free, and that moment alone changed how fans view them moving forward. Love them or hate them, no one can deny this is one of the wildest twists ever to hit the love and hip-hop world. What began as a terrifying legal nightmare filled with fear, uncertainty, and what felt like injustice has now turned into a story of survival, resilience, and redemption. But what happens when the cameras stop, filming and hashtags fade? That's where the real journey begins. For Rasheeda and Kirk, this wasn't just another reality TV plotline. This was their son, their family, their legacy on the line. They had to claw and fight to protect him from a system that too often works against young black men, especially those with famous last names. And even though the verdict brought relief, the emotional weight of the past months can't just be erased. Behind closed doors, insiders say Kirk Frost Jr. came out of the ordeal shaken but also determined. He learned who stood by him during the darkest moments and who only stuck around when life looked glamorous. Those lessons cut deep. According to people close to him, he's now planning to use his platform to speak about justice reform and the challenges young men like him face when they're judged unfairly by the media, police, or simply by association. But let's be honest, this case was never just about the law. It was about image, reputation, and the brutal nature of the entertainment industry. Growing up as the child of two reality TV veterans meant every rumor spread like wildfire. Every mistake was magnified, and every headline painted him in ways that weren't always fair. Even when he was innocent, social media tore into him, calling him reckless, privileged, or just living off his parents. That digital trial by fire left marks no courtroom verdict could erase. Rasheeda, normally composed and measured on love and hip-hop, showed raw emotion after the court decision. On Instagram Live, she fought back tears as she thanked fans, her legal team, and God for protecting her son. Then she drew a hard line. "Say what you want about me, my marriage, our show, but don't ever come for my child, period." That moment struck a nerve with viewers who praised her as a true mother, unshakable and fierce when it mattered most. Kirk, often seen as the more controversial half of their relationship, surprised many by taking on a calm, steady role. Friends of the family say he was the one constantly reminding everyone to be patient and trust the process. For once, the messy scandals that usually follow his name faded, replaced by the image of a father working quietly behind the scenes to protect his son. The Frost legal team didn't hold back either. They suggested the case expose deeper flaws in how law enforcement often presumes young men of color guilty before the facts are clear. They even hinted that further legal action could be pursued against those who rushed to accuse him. If that happens, this story could grow even bigger than anyone expected. Meanwhile, love and hip-hop producers are almost certainly watching the whole saga with anticipation. The Frosts have always been one of the most talked about families on the show, and this scandal-turned-redemption arc could dominate the next season. Imagine cameras capturing their son's return to normal life, the rebuilding of trust, and the family navigating fame after such public chaos. Fans are already buzzing, calling it the most emotional, real storyline the franchise has ever had. Of course, not everyone is convinced. Skeptics online claim the ordeal may have been exaggerated for ratings, that in reality TV you never know where truth ends and production begins. But those close to the Frosts strongly reject that idea. They insist the sleepless nights, emotional breakdowns, and gut-wrenching fear were painfully real. As one family friend put it, nobody would put their child through this just for TV. Now, sources say Kirk Jr. is focusing on healing. He's keeping his circle small, avoiding the nightlife, and spending more time with people who uplift him. There's even talk of him working on his own business venture, separate from his parents, as a way to prove he's carving his own lane. Still, social media users warn him to tread carefully. One wrong move could undo everything he fought so hard to prove. In today's digital world, perception often outweighs reality, and that's a battle he'll face for years to come. One undeniable truth is that this case changed the Frost family forever. Rasheeda is no longer just the boss chick or reality star. She's now solidified in fans' eyes as a fierce protector of her children. Kirk, long criticized for his messy past, has been humanized as a father who stepped up when it counted most. And Kirk Jr., once just the Frost's son, now carries his own story of struggle, survival, and redemption. This chapter may be closed, but the next is just beginning. Will he use his freedom and the spotlight to build something meaningful? Will Rasheeda and Kirk turn their family's ordeal into a platform for justice reform? Or will fame's relentless pressure drag them back into chaos? Only time will tell. One thing is certain, the world is still watching. So what do you think? Was justice really served here? Or is there more to this story that hasn't surfaced yet? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe so you don't miss the next twist in this roller coaster saga. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that when it comes to the Frost family, the drama never really sleeps.